what happened was that there were three efforts, two on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. East Coast was edX. The West Coast efforts were for-profit, Coursera and Udacity.
Uh-huh.
But edX initially was founded as a non-profit, but more importantly, it was open source. So the Open edX source code, Stanford University downloaded it with our permission. Obviously, it's open source, and they ran their own version of Open edX source code on Stanford campus, and that became Lagunitas. So Lagunitas was actually based on Open edX software.
The following is a long open conversation with Dr. Sanjay Sarma, Dean, President, and CEO of the Asia School of Business in collaboration with MIT Sloan School of Management. We had the chance to sit and talk about many topics, like his early days as engineer in the North Sea, his findings through RFID, its standards, and the consequences it has in society, his contribution to Aadhar, the Universal Identification Number in India, his involvement in the creation of Open Learning, which will become MITx, and his future work in both Malaysia, Massachusetts, and beyond. This is On the Lawn with the FVR podcast. If you like this thing, feel free to like and subscribe and to contribute to the channel in the description below. And now with y'all, Dr. Sanjay Sarma.
They say Austin as the little California, but you know, a lot of people move from the Golden State to the capital, so it's like, okay, now the prices are going up and the tradition of being in one of those cities is like changing, but well, that's life in the big city. I guess we are ready to start.
Yeah.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of On the Lawn with FVR. Today we have Sanjay. Thanks for doing, man.
Good to see you, Fabian.
So happy that we have a chance to talk. And many people have been asking, like, when's Sanjay? When's Sanjay? Well, now it's Sanjay.
Such a pleasure.
Absolutely. People may see you and they may have questions. So the first thing I would want to share with you is, can you tell us a little more about yourself and where is your upbringing coming from?
Yeah, I grew up in India, and I worked in the UK briefly, and then I've spent 30-something years in America since then. And I've been at MIT for almost 27 years.
Wow, that's such a long journey. I happen to read on Wikipedia, sometimes Wikipedia is good or bad, but before going to MIT you were in Schlumberger.
Yeah.
So how was the time in the Big Blue?
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. It changed my life because I went straight from college in India to working on a rig in the North Sea. And for an engineer, everything is theoretical until you're on a rig, you know? And when there's a leak in the pipe, or there's a fire hazard, or there's something that breaks, you gotta fix it. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, especially when you have the night shift and then the day shift, and sometimes it's like the
Yeah.
28, 3. I remember those days as well.
Yeah, you work 12 hours a day, you know, and then you stagger back into the quarters on the rig. You're tired, but satisfied. You know, your body hurts a little bit. You have a huge dinner.
Oh yeah, this is a huge problem in the oil field, and I can also recall that because I was in the jungle as well.
Yeah.
The main responsible to keep everybody running is not the manager, it's the chef.
Exactly.
And the chef, sometimes they feel guilt, like, it's because of me they are like that. No, don't cry, chef, don't cry. It's our responsibility because we eat a little longer and bigger than usual.
Yeah. So the food was good. It was great. Yeah.
In MIT, you can take us back to the 90s. And there was a time that with other friends you began to develop something that will be the beginning of a new era, the RFID. Can you tell us how the story started there?
Yeah. So I was at MIT. I was working in manufacturing, and one of my colleagues actually came to my office. His name is David Brock, and he said, "Sanjay, we got to do RFID, man." And I go, "Why?" You know, he goes, "Well, listen. The thing about RFID is that if we put it on everything, then we can identify it easily and so on." So that was his angle. My angle was, we can't do it. It's too expensive. So we crafted this strategy. I worked on the cost and the standards and the RF, and he had this idea of putting very little data on the chip and putting all the information on the net. At that time, we didn't have a cloud. So I would point to the sky and say, on the sky, because there was no term for cloud. So David and I started it, and then I got deep into the protocols and cloud protocol. At that time, cloud protocols didn't exist, but protocols for information transfer and routing the data, numbering schemes, and manufacturing the chips. And that's how the Auto ID Center took off. Then we got a third person, Kevin Ashton from PNG, and he'd been working on this separately because he had independently noticed that out of stocks in stores was a huge problem. So we had a killer app, and the three of us worked together, and there it was.
Fantastic. That was late 90s, right?
Yeah, that was 98 is when we started. 99 we launched the center. It was the 25th anniversary of the barcode. when we launched it.
Wow. Now, something that is not very often discussed when you're opening a center is the ability to fundraise, especially the grants and all the things. And there may be some academics watching this. What kind of experience can you tell them when they are finally launching something and say, you don't have to stop there, you should keep going?
Well, first of all, let me just be a little bit humble and say it's easier to fundraise when you're at MIT. Okay. It gives you a lot of benefits. So, for all those people out there fundraising and struggling, I don't want to claim some superhuman quality. I was at MIT. I was lucky. That said, I think it's easier to fundraise if you have a vision. And the other thing is you have to deliver. So the first fundraising you can sell the vision, but then the next round, and because this is a long project, you have to start delivering. And then eventually it becomes your credibility, not the institution. And then after that, fundraising becomes easier because people trust that you can deliver. So it's all a matter of building that credibility and momentum. But I will not again. I don't want to be humble about it. If I weren't at MIT, that first step would not have been easy.
It's always about the first step, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not always about the first step. It's about the second step and the third step. But I think we all should realize that there is a lot of privilege. You know, I mean, if you're born in the right family, if you're born in the right country, you have a lot of advantages in that first step. And I was not born in America, but I ended up at MIT. And in this journey, I had the advantage of the first step. You do have to deliver on the second step. You do have to deliver on the third step. But yes, a lot of people have a lot of advantages on first step. There's this expression in American English, baseball expression, that is, some people are born on third base and they think they hit a home run when they took a single.
That's true. And to be a bigger perspective, in order to make a run, you need to go through the first base, second base, third base, and finally go to home base. And one of the difficult things is actually to go to the first base, because when you bat the ball, sometimes one of the safeties or one of the shortstoppers will get the ball and then you're out. Or sometimes the ball goes far and it bounces and you're still in the play. It's true. It's one of the first and hardest things to actually get on base. Now, during that time that you helped build the RFID, there were standards, and people began to ask, well, we have this technology, how we can actually have a common page. So how was that journey to say, listen, this technology is for this and not for that, there will be some mavericks that we wanted to do it for something else. How you were in that particular task?
You know, it's a great question. So we had lots of opposition when we started this. So we had big supporters like Walmart and P&G, but the vendors were very happy because they would have proprietary protocols and have sweetheart deals. And it was a small industry, but the person running the $10 million industry contract with the bus pass system in Cologne, Germany, didn't want these hotshots at MIT to come and change that. So they would say, we have a standard, except it was a standard that they owned. It was not an open standard. So the vendors, many of them were very opposed to us. Very. It was very difficult. And what they do is something called FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. And what you have to do is you have to be very courageous. I was young, so I was foolish, and that can pass for courage. But I was very pig-headed about it, and we managed to stay the course, and we were attacked all the time. And we just stayed the course. We kept the sponsors together, and then eventually the results started to come in. You know, a lot of perspiration, and then we had the first time. We've had to show. We did everything from business cases to writing software to technologies to demos to going to conferences and persuading CEOs and persuading people in factories, and I learned a lot, and we had a good team of students and staff, but it takes a lot of effort to create a standard, and I've done it twice in my life, and it takes a lot out of you, but it's worth it.
And this was across how many years, from 1988 until...
1998, so we started in 98. We actually officially launched the center in 99, but we started in 98, painting the vision. By 2003, we had already won 4 years. And since then, after that, RFID went up and down. Then the 2008 crash happened. And we thought that would be a really tough thing for RFID, but actually helped RFID. Because a lot of companies suddenly realized that they were holding inventory that they shouldn't have had. It was a liability. And so then, especially in the clothing industry, RFID started taking off. Meanwhile, retailers were in trouble because they had to keep up with Amazon, right, and online, Aahdar, Shopee, etc. So they realized slowly that the extra cost of RFID was more than worth the benefit, because they could now be much more efficient about their inventory, but also fulfillment. These online shopping services are very, very careful about their inventory. If they place an order, they know where it is. They can get it, right?
This brings me an analogy about the warrior that always trains. The analogy for the warrior that always trains is because there is no war, there is no battle, but the warrior always trains. So by the time the faithful fight arrives, the warrior is ready.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great expression. That's, I hope, something you'll do as well, right? Yeah. But no, absolutely. So, anyway, that's how RFID took off.
Now, you mentioned that you made 2 standards, and the first one was the RFID. I'm led to assume that the second standard you helped build was open learning.
No, that's the third one.
That's the third one. So which is the second one?
The second one was many years ago. The minister in the government of India, Nandan Nilekani, he was the founder of Infosys, reached out to me and said, listen, I'm thinking of a universal ID number for India, like a social security number, an ID number, and I want to be modern, I want to do it differently. So I led the effort with 2 other colleagues, and we wrote the formula that became the Indian Aadhar number, of which more than 1 billion have been issued.
Now, this is a national thing. Very few people have been actually aware. Right now I'm learning on this. So how did you convince an institution that affects a billion population ID?
So this one, there's a technical side. To come up with an ID, actually it's very difficult. See, there's no card. So we decided to build a cardless ID. So all you have to do is remember your ID and use your fingerprint.
Okay.
Right. So designing the number is actually quite technically difficult, because if you're trying to remember a number, you might forget it, you might switch digits, especially in a large country, especially with a diverse population, diverse education and so on. So we had to design that carefully. It was Nandan, the then minister, who went and first had to sell his government. There were a lot of competing standards. We supported him, and then the issue became one of, here's another challenge with standards. You come up with a clean standard. It does one thing, it does it really well. They go, no, it should do this other thing. Maybe we should number animals, like cattle. Maybe we should have a number that's not just for people, but also companies, and we had to fight that. So through Nandan, we fought those battles to make it very clean. A clean standard has a likelihood of succeeding. If it tries to do too many things, it fails. Then the government changed. And the new government wasn't very sympathetic to it, new political party. But Nandan went and fought that battle. So in this case, I played the technology part, and it was he who fought it. And then open learning, I would say, is less of a standard and more of there are standards in there, more of a movement.
Oh, okay. So discussing about the movement, it was in parallel to the more and more adoption of internet. I was aware of that around the late 2000s, maybe the beginning of 2010s, that everybody began to showcase, okay, get a certification online and everything. And even I remember recently that you gave some courses that became online, like the recipe and the super recipe.
Oh, yeah.
So, open learning,
Yeah.
how that started and how it got momentum.
Yeah. So there were. So actually, it came in two waves out of MIT. Both were pioneering efforts. The first was OpenCourseWare.
Uh-huh.
OpenCourseWare was launched in 2000. And what happened with OpenCourseWare is MIT decided to make its entire curriculum free to the world. Offer all of problems, lectures, if you had lecture notes, professors' lecture notes. And then eventually became video recordings. So that was launched in 2000. And I was involved in that. And actually, my wife, who was not at MIT, happened to be just because she was a consultant for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton. And she actually brought Booz Allen Hamilton in, and they became one of the advisory companies that said, look, you can just give it away for free. And so MIT decided to give everything away for free. So I was involved in that. And then eventually, so that was one, and that's where my videos were. I should teach dynamics, and I had the magic formula and the super magic formula, which was just a way to capture a very complex dynamics equation for acceleration. Things like the Coriolis effect, all that in one place. And so, anyway, that was my pedagogy, and that ended up on those videos. Then 2012, MIT launched. End of 2011, MIT launched its first massive open online course, MOOC. In 2012, MIT and Harvard created edX. And in 2012, I became the head of open learning at MIT. And I was on the board of edX. And that was another 10-year journey, a 9-year journey, 9.5.
I recall those times very well, because what happens in the East Coast also sometimes happens in the West Coast. And maybe you're also familiar with Lagunitas by Stanford. It was like a fight between these two platforms until finally edX decided, okay.
No, that's not exactly what happened. So what happened was that there were three efforts. Two on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. East Coast was edX. The West Coast efforts were for-profit, Coursera and Udacity. But edX initially was founded as a non-profit, but more importantly, it was open source. So the Open edX source code, Stanford University downloaded it with our permission. Obviously, it's open source, and they ran their own version of Open edX source code on Stanford campus, and that became Lagunitas. So Lagunitas was actually based on Open edX software.
Wow.
Very interesting.
I thought it was named Lagunitas because it was a smaller version of a laguna, a lake that they have somewhere.
Yes, that is correct. California has them, but if I recall, they use the Open edX platform. Oh, and to this day, Open edX is open source. Anyone can download it.
Yeah, especially when you want to learn something, or you get a certificate, or to be like a kind of the auditors of one of the courses. It's so practical.
Yeah, but keep in mind there are two different things here. One is the open source software for running the course, the MOOC serving platform. That is open source. edX eventually was acquired by a company called Udacity, but they still make free offerings. You can still get the videos for free. You can watch them for free, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Especially when you want to be up to date to certain things. Now, there's going to be a pushback, like, well, why I want to learn through the website? We can actually go on site. So I believe there was also some counterparty saying, this is not a good profitable effort because we're going to be putting students and they're not going to come anymore.
Yeah, but actually I happen to believe that. I actually agree with that. I think, I've always said, and it's in my book, that on-site is better. Right? So the reason to do online education is not to replace on-site, it's actually to enrich the on-site. So that's called the flipped classroom. So the idea is that if you have videos, watch them before the class, and in the classroom, we can do action learning, as we do at ASB. So I've always wanted the action to begin in the classroom, right? So the videos, if I'm giving a lecture, the students are just listening, it's not active. So why not put it on video and make the classroom more fun? And then once you have the video, give it to people who cannot get on-site access. Make it available to them. That's the strategy. I have never been a fan of replacing on-site with online ever.
And also have to say that it's a good marketing strategy, even if we don't want to recognize it, because then when you're sharing this open access code, it's like, I like this class, I want to be part of it. And when there is a will, there is a way. I'm not sure how much you have across the years, but I will be interested to see how many students were finally enrolling in those classes after watching these little pieces of the open learning.
So over the course of 10 years, 5 million people enrolled in these courses. Maybe it's 6 now, I haven't kept up. And we also invented a new credential called the MicroMasters.
Oh yeah.
And 1.5 million people, I think more now, probably 1.6, 1.7 people have enrolled in the MicroMasters. So the numbers are pretty staggering.
Mm-hmm. That represents volume that's compounded in time, and a lot of people is using those credentials, which is very nice. Now, given that, I need to ask you, doing open learning and doing the RFID and the national ID for India, when did it come to you to say it's time to go to Malaysia? Because for some, they will say, "Oh, I achieved more than 10 lifetimes," but you decide to go beyond.
Thank you. First of all, these are all team efforts. In 2022, I decided to step down as vice president, and I was going to go back to being a professor. And I actually did. I went on sabbatical, and I was planning to teach in the spring of 2023. That is the first half of 2023. That was my plan, because I'd done all this. I want to take a little bit of a break. But I've always felt that higher education as a whole, not just online education, needs some fixing. I'm a huge believer in action learning on the job, because that's what happened to me, like Schlumberger. So I wasn't looking, and then one of the dean at Sloan requested that I visit ASB because it's an exciting place and so on. So my wife and I went to Bali for a vacation, and then we visited ASB. And when we came here, I met you, one of the students I met, and the faculty, and the staff, and the environment, and the buildings, and I was like, wow. If we want to change higher ed, we need a model, and it can't be an established, like a 50-year-old university, because there are too many things that are need to be changed. But here we have an institution that was set up by MIT, that's headed in the right direction. It's fantastic students. So I thought, yeah, that might be interesting. So I decided to change directions, and I've had zero regrets. I've had an amazing time here with the great students, MBA students, the MCB students, amazing faculty, amazing staff. So it's been fantastic. You got to change, man. Life gets boring otherwise, right?
I totally agree on that. The opportunity to pivot and do some good about it. Now, I'm a little fascinated from the personal side, how you went with your wife to Bali, and then all of a sudden, I guess we need to stay here a little longer. So from, maybe it's a piece of advice from relationship side, but how do you deal with that delicate topic? Because you have a life partner, and then all of a sudden a plan is changes for something.
So remember, we would already changed countries. I already changed countries 3 times. I moved from the US, from India to the UK, UK to the US. My wife moved from India to the US. In the US, and by the way, she lives in the US, so she visits me. She actually just arrived today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we go back and forth. I go there, she comes back, we have family in India. So there are reasons for her to visit India, for me to visit India. So we make it work. We've been married 32 years, we've been I think supportive of each other's aspirations and careers. Just a matter of understanding, confidence, trust. I don't know if we could have done it when we were only married for 10 years. We don't have kids at home. Our daughter's in college, so it's easier. It's still hard, but then trust and confidence are very important.
Totally agree. Trust and confidence. Yeah. Because as years pass by, the the companionship.
Yeah,
The
and
really
empathy.
cool.
Empathy. And
Yeah.
you know, we talk every day, so on the phone, right?
Mhm.
And we both have very active jobs, so we stay busy.
That's very cool to hear. That it's not only the person on the technical side, but also there's a human side.
Yeah.
Now, let me take for a moment the part of the opposition, and they will say, well, why to go to Malaysia for an MBA, which can go all the way to Cambridge? So, what is the missing gap in that argument that you would invite them to recognize?
It depends on what one is looking for. If you first of all, it's hard to get into, very hard to get into MIT and Sloan, right? ASB is hard too, but it's not as hard, right? But more importantly, I think that Asia, Southeast Asia, is extraordinarily exciting. I mean, look at the diversity of people we have here, the experiences we have here. 10 countries, 600 and something million people. It's bigger than Western Europe and America combined, right? It's bigger than Western Europe, Russia, and America combined. And it's growing, and it's surrounded by behemoths, right? India, China, Japan, Korea. I mean, in terms of economic behemoths, Japan and Korea. And you have, all these economies: Singapore, Indonesia, 270 million people, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam is really growing. So it's an extraordinary place to be. I mean, why wouldn't you be here? It's like, if you're happy in Europe and it's 15, 60, right? And someone says, let's go to America. You go, well, why should I go to America? Right? But that's where the growth was. That's a new unconquered territory. Of course, Native Americans may have a different view of it, right? In the 21st century, hopefully, we can be understanding and sensible and ethical and worldly wise, and lift the tide, have a tide that lifts all boats. So I think that the real opportunity here is exceptional. And as I said, I haven't regretted, because every day I have a new experience, new food, new people, new culture, new language, new ethnicity, new religion, Fast. I'm just so love it. I love it here. And I think this is a petri dish if you want to study growth. It's a growing institution in a growing area.
That's a catchy phrase. Maybe that can be the one-liner.
Yeah.
From what I saw, you learn by doing. And also you expand your horizons when you walk through the streets. I got a chance to walk to the streets of Singapore and also the streets of Manila, the streets of Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Malaysia. And once you see how they behave, how they trade, how they do business, it's like how these ideas can help the people that are around them. And we kind of principles can actually be put on the business cases I want to do.
Yes. Look, I mean, let's take the gig economy. That's it. I mean, it's the future. What is the gig economy in beautiful old Cambridge, Massachusetts? Uber, Lyft, maybe TaskRabbit. Look at the gig economy here, right? You have hawkers, you have small businesses, you have family-owned businesses that have been a generation, 3 generations in the same family. You have new businesses, you have high tech, you have so many handicrafts, you have services, right? There's a lot more diversity here. Malaysia is at the rich end of the developing spectrum. It's about to become it's not going to be a poor country anymore. It's going to be, it's on the high end of the mid-level income country. It's going to be a high income country. But it's still in that spectrum. And in Malaysia, you see the whole spectrum. And then in Asia, in Southeast Asia especially, you see it all. If you want to get educated and learn about businesses and the future of business and how people think about things, this is the place. I mean, the fact that a lot of business is done here on WhatsApp and WeChat, that in itself tells you something. The fact that my Grab app does translation, because my driver may be commenting in Mandarin, and I don't understand Mandarin, it translates live. You don't need that in Uber because it's in America, because it's so homogenous. So it's a very interesting place.
It's true. And now the analogy will be, which stock to buy, and you will always hear the blue chips. And it's like, which are the growth stocks? Of course you don't know them because you're not supposed to know. You need to find and research it, because once a stock is on the spotlight, it's already oversold. and the opportunity of growth here is still going up. So the experience, the growth, the opportunity to make business, also the life experiences have been fascinating. Well, some people just been following the podcast, they saw other videos from other places, and yeah, other guests had the chance to actually share their own business learnings. Now, across your career, there were big decisions, and there were compromises. I need to ask you, if you want to share, which was the biggest compromise you took?
I don't know if I had that many. I I think the most important compromises one makes are for. There are compromises. We make decisions for family, and those are the ones that come to mind, where we make collective decisions. My wife made a decision um, to come to Cambridge, and now I'm here, right? Um, those are the ones that are the biggest and the most deserving. The rest, we just, life is a journey. You just, um, you just participate in the journey, you take decisions when you come to forks in the road. I don't see them as compromises. I really don't. And the few that I did take were with my family, for my family, mutually, my wife more than me actually. And I have no regrets, and they were wonderful.
Now, across the regions that you saw, there are things in common, but also there are little differences. Would you like to highlight those little differences?
Yeah, I mean, so I've lived on 3 continents, and I've worked on in a fourth very much, which is South America. I worked closely with in South America. Let me talk about the similarities. I think at their heart, the people are the same. And if you're very authentic, which you are, right? You really get to understand people, and people are beautiful. People are a beautiful thing. The differences are on many dimensions. One of them is directness versus politeness.
Uh-huh.
Some cultures are very direct. Some cultures are very polite, and so you have to read between the lines. So you have to be very subtle. So that's one. Another one is sort of similar, which is how aggressive versus how reserved you are. Right? So that's sort of similar. It's not the same. How aggressive you are in business, etc. Another one is what your social contract is. Right? What's your personal contract with society? Is your contract that I want to have a good life, or is your contract that I want to make a lot of money, or is your contract that I want to be ambitious and grow very? You have to figure that out. Good life. Even in good life, is it I want to have a good life, or is it I want to have a good family life? So these are some of the areas where I see differences. And you can't judge one or the other. And sometimes in America, I feel that life comes second, work comes first, and I'm guilty of that, right? But it's very good and eye-opening to see different cultures, different people, because they have such different perspectives on life, and they're all completely understandable. And we tend to judge people on that, and I think that's a mistake. So if there's a community that says, listen, we care very much about family. We're not trying to make a lot of money. We're happy. We're not rich, but we're satisfied. You've got to respect that. And you run into it when you explore the vast cross-section of humanity, which I've had the luxury of doing to some extent.
Totally agree on that. Maybe the opposition argument will be that current waves of anti-globalization and ultranationalism are trying to put barriers on the young to explore. And to them I would say, let them explore, because you need to have faith in your people, because people is good in nature.
Yeah, people are good. Now, of course, we're coming to a different point where we're running out of resources on this planet. We're putting too much CO2 in the air. Arizona is going through an unbelievable heat wave, right? Now, at this point, is it every person to themselves, or is society, global humanity, one unified body trying to fight for survival? Well, this is where I think the world hits a crossroads. Because the America First type say, oh, no, it should be only about America. Climate change, global warming, all these things are not real. and we should continue to do what we're doing? Or do we say we're all part of a single humanity, and this is the planet we live on? I mean, the heat wave in Arizona, right? If some other country puts out CO2 or the US puts out CO2, it doesn't matter. There's still going to be global warming. So long story short, I think we have to recognize our collective humanity. And this is going to be the struggle for humanity to survive.
Talking about things that are like a overcoming story and lessons to learn, chances are there are going to be some young Sanjays watching this, and they may be asking many questions, but among them, they will ask for some advice. So I need to ask you, what piece of advice will you give to your younger self?
Be authentic. Be authentic, you know. If you think something is right and you feel that you ought to do it, don't just do it. You know, take people's advice. But a lot of advice deters you. Right? A lot of advice is usually innocent, but not always. It deters you. Take the advice. Come to a decision. If you think it's the right thing to do it. Don't let society or others talk you out of making decisions that you think are right. Right? Factual advice you have to take, but not this emotional, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do it. No, ignore it. Be authentic to yourself.
I cannot find a better way to close the episode. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for
So
that,
how,
Fabian.
how can people find you?
Just send me an email or whatever.
Are you on LinkedIn? Are you
No,
on Instagram? Are you on Twitter?
I jumped off all the social media in 2008
Okay.
because I found that rather than the social media being a tool for me, I found myself becoming a tool for social media. You know, I would take pictures not so I could remember the place, but because I wanted to post it on social media. I thought that's backwards. So I just jumped off all my social media.
That's another strong word of advice. So I really appreciate doing this. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot, man.
And for people out there, please stay safe and see you when I see you. Bye.
See you.